for tuning into Arirang News on this Friday, December 8th here in Korea. I'm Han-Dan in Seoul. Let's start right off with the top headlines at this hour. Clearing up the confusion, the White House says the U.S. is looking forward to American athletes competing at the Pyeongchang Olympics despite the simmering tensions with North Korea. This comes as the head of the IOC pushes for a trip to the north. The source of the recent tension, a massive joint airborne military drill between South Korea and the U.S., comes to an end today. The U.S. has sent some of its most advanced aircraft to the Korean peninsula in a show of force against Pyongyang. The leader of Hamas calls for a new Palestinian uprising to protest President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. We have the latest developments. The White House says the United States is looking forward to take part in the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics and has no plans of pulling out of the competition. The clarification comes as there was some confusion on the matter, with the American ambassador to the UN saying U.S. participation was an open question that needed to be discussed given the tensions with North Korea. Our Yoo Jun-hee has our top story.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders has tweeted that the U.S. is looking forward to participating in the upcoming Pyeongchang Games. She added the protection of Americans traveling to Korea was a top priority for the administration and that it was working with Seoul's government to ensure their safety. However, the message from the White House ran contrary to a statement from Nikki Haley, the American ambassador to the United Nations. Haley, in an interview with Fox News, said there were questions surrounding whether or not U.S. athletes would travel to South Korea amid escalating tensions with North Korea.
There's an open question. I have not heard anything about that, but I do know that in the talks that we have, whether it's Jerusalem, whether it's North Korea, it's always about how do we protect the U.S. citizens in the area.
The U.S. Olympic Committee also released a statement in an attempt to clear up any confusion, saying no discussions have taken place on the possibility of abstaining from the Winter Games. The U.S. Olympic Committee is a government-chartered but fully independent organization that is not funded by the federal government and has the final say on the athletes' participation. For now, the U.S. is planning to send more than 200 athletes to the Winter Games, where the venues lie just 80 kilometers south of the DMZ. Yoo Jun-hee, Arirang News.
The president of the International Olympic Committee is reportedly pushing for a visit to North Korea. According to Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency on Friday, South Korean government officials say Thomas Bach is aiming to negotiate with the North for the nation's participation in the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, and that the visit may take place before the end of the month. The report says the IOC and the South Korean government are in close coordination over his potential visit. However, it's unclear whether the North will let Bach travel to Pyongyang, but if the trip gets the green light, watchers say it'll be a positive signal North Korea could join the Festival of Sport in February. It's been a massive show of force against North Korea, but South Korea and the United States are preparing to wind down their largest Air Force exercise to date. The allies have spent the past few days going over various wartime scenarios, including targeting North Korea's key nuclear and missile facilities. Our Kim Hyun-bin for us this afternoon at the Defense Ministry.
Seoul and Washington have been conducting a massive air combat drill known as Vigilant Ace. The 5-day exercise is the largest ever combined Air Force drill between the two allies, involving 230 warplanes and around 12,000 personnel. 24 U.S. stealth fighter jets took part in the drills, 6 of them F-22s, 6 of them F-35As, as well as a dozen F-35Bs, marking the first time the highly advanced jets have cruised the skies of Korea at the same time. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is said to be the most afraid of stealth fighters, as they can easily get past the regime's air defenses undetected. Other U.S. assets include 2 B-1B bombers and 6 Growler electronic warfare jets, as well as dozens of F-15s and F-16s. South Korea has employed 90 fighter jets, including its F-15 and F-A-50 fighters. The U.S. also flew 2 B-1B supersonic bombers over Korea for 2 consecutive days on Wednesday and Thursday, carrying out bombing drills over the Yellow Sea near North Korea and China. It is unusual for the U.S. to send the bombers stationed in Guam for 2 days in a row. Their exercise was simulated to target key North Korean facilities, including nuclear and missile sites. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
North Korea reportedly wants to talk with the United States to guarantee its security. This was the clear message relayed on Thursday by Russia's foreign minister to his U.S. counterpart, Rex Tillerson. Our Park Jong-hong with the details.
While North Korea is talking tough about a war with the U.S., it is apparently looking forward to dialogue with Washington. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says North Korea wants to sit down with the U.S. to seek guarantees on its security. He was quoted by several sources as passing on that message to U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in Vienna on Thursday. The two met on the sidelines of a ministerial conference of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Lavrov said Russia is ready to support North Korea's dialogue with the U.S., adding that it's willing to help facilitate such negotiations. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign ministry said Tillerson and Lavrov agreed that Pyongyang must thoroughly abide by the UN Security Council resolutions. This comes after North Korea blasted the U.S. on Thursday for the large-scale combat drills taking place over the peninsula, saying the exercises are, quote, confrontational warmongering that makes a war inevitable. On its state-run news channel, North Korea added that, quote, it does not wish for a war, but it will not hide from it. Responding to the tension, China's foreign ministry spokesman urged all parties to stay calm and to refrain from provoking each other. He said a war would benefit neither side and would threaten the lives of many people. Against this backdrop, China has sent a special envoy to the U.S. to discuss North Korea-related issues. Beijing's Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Zheng Zheguang, is said to meet with Matt Pottinger, the head of Asian Affairs at the White House's National Security Council. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
Vigil.
And we've already been seeing North Korea pull more strings, inviting a senior UN diplomat to the country's capital for talks. Jeffrey Feltman, the UN's Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs, met with the regime's foreign minister Lee Yong-ho on Thursday, though the details of their meeting have yet to be revealed. North Korea's state-run media says the visiting envoy discussed UN assistance and operations in the country, along with other matters of mutual concern. And with the UN envoy wrapping up his four-day trip today, focus is on whether or not Kim Jong-un will continue to avoid meeting high-profile visitors. It wouldn't be much of a surprise if Feltman returns without encountering Kim, as he shunned the Chinese president's special envoy last month. Global airlines have changed their flight routes to ensure their safety from North Korea's missile threats. Singapore Airlines said that it has changed some of its flight routes, including its South Korea-U.S. flights, after Pyongyang launched a missile that flew over the waters near Japan back in July. With the new routes, the company said its flights do not travel near the missile trajectory areas. According to Voice of America, U.S. carrier American Airlines also changed its flight paths back in May because of fears of North Korea's continued missile tests. Other airlines that have changed their routes include Air France and German carrier Lufthansa. South Korea's finance chief has vowed to speed up economic restructuring by creating state funds worth nearly $914 million by next June, with the aim of boosting jobs and innovation. Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon said Friday that it'll provide guidelines for regular state inspections of Korea's key industries, such as the struggling shipbuilding industry, which he says will be revamped with specific government measures next year. He said the government will minimize the state burden in supporting these core industries by taking a market-based approach and weaning them off their reliance on state-run banks for funding. The central government will also consult with local governments and experts to minimize risks during the restructuring. Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun has promised to improve human rights in Korea. He made the remarks during a ceremony for the 69th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at Seoul's government complex today.
One of government's objectives is to strengthen democracy by giving priority to human rights.
We will eradicate discrimination by protecting the rights of socially vulnerable people and minorities.
The Prime Minister said the government plans to expand government organizations to deal with such human rights issues. In addition, the government is working with Parliament to propose new laws promoting human rights, including women's rights, and reducing discrimination against handicapped people. Condemnation is growing in the face of President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. Embassy there from Tel Aviv. Leaders from around the world have criticized his decision, and Palestinian protesters have clashed with Israeli forces in the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Jerusalem. Our Park Ji-won has the latest developments.
Palestinians have called for 3 days of rage in response to U.S. President Trump's announcement. Thousands of Palestinians took to the streets of Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip, where some of them clashed with Israeli forces. Reuters reported that scores of people were wounded by Israeli troops' gunfire and rubber bullets during the clashes. While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says many countries will follow the United States' lead, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas called Trump's decision an unacceptable crime, saying he rejects it and the U.S. has lost its credibility in the region. Leaders from UK, France, and Germany expressed their concerns following the U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan also issued statements saying Trump's decision would have dangerous repercussions on the stability and security of the region. The leader of Islamist group Hamas said the decision was a war declaration against Palestinians and called for an uprising. President Trump said in addition to the recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, that the U.S. would move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, where no country has its embassy as of now. The UN Security Council is scheduled to meet on Friday to further discuss Trump's announcement on Jerusalem. 박지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
4 major wildfires are burning in Southern California after first breaking out on Monday with strong winds hampering firefighters' efforts to control the blaze. Over 200,000 residents have been evacuated so far, with the wildfire destroying hundreds of homes and forcing school closures in the Los Angeles area. The blaze is being fueled by strong winds and have even reached the wealthy Los Angeles suburb of Bel Air, shutting down highways in the densely populated area. A woman's body has been found, but no other casualties have been reported so far, aside from injuries to 3 firefighters. Facing a string of sexual misconduct allegations and intense pressure from his fellow Democrats, U.S. Senator Al Franken has announced that he will resign in the coming week. In a speech to the Senate on Thursday, Franken still denied some of the allegations against him and called out President Trump, who was accused of past sexual misconduct during the presidential campaign. Another high-profile figure, Arizona Republican Representative Trent Franks, said Thursday that he will resign from Congress at the end of January. This comes after the House Ethics Committee said it would investigate sexual harassment allegations against him. Bitcoin continues its wild ride, rocketing past $19,000 for the first time on Thursday before falling sharply to around $15,000, and it's currently back on an upswing. The price fluctuations come just days before the upcoming launch of the first Bitcoin futures contract, which is fueling investor interest. Bitcoin began the year below $1,000 and has surged more than 15-fold in value so far. Proponents say Bitcoin is a good medium of exchange and a way to store value that's not subject to central bank manipulation. But critics warn that the price run-up is a bubble that has been driven mostly by speculation, leaving Bitcoin vulnerable to a sharp reversal. Now moving on to one of the most anticipated awards in football, Cristiano Ronaldo has been named the world's best player yet again after an unbelievable season with Spanish giants Real Madrid. His fifth win draws him level with his arch rival Lionel Messi. Our Park Se-young has a story.